Thanks again for joining us here at the stately virtual campus here at the Apartment Academy, the multifamily industry's only operations-focused podcast and your institute of higher NOI. I'm your host and the dean here at the Apartment Academy, Daniel Cunningham. And today's guest lecturer is Zeb Thomas. Zeb is the director of operations at the Scion Group, and the Scion Group is one of the largest student housing operators in the country, and has been doing it for a long time, and in a product type that I think not a lot of folks understand. One of the things that sort of shies people away is the process of student turn. And Zeb and I talked a lot about that today, so if you want to learn from a master on how you pull this off, today's the episode for you. Here is Professor Thomas. Well, hello there, Professor Thomas. Welcome to campus here at the Apartment Academy. It's great to have you.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Let's start off I always love to just hear a bit about the journey which brought you into multifamily. And so if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your background, how you ended up here. You're currently director of operations at the Scion Group. What brought you to that role?
Yeah, so I think it's like most people who were in multifamily or student housing. It's kind of like a college job. Was a part-time community assistant back in the day. Yeah, needed to needed to work to get that free rent or rent discount before they kind of did away with that. But really, that's kind of where it started. Went to Texas A&M, and I wanted to work during school, and so I started out as community assistant. Ended up moving away from the property I lived at, and just did some lease ups with another company, and then after graduation, you kind of weighed your options. You looked at like a public health degree that I had and looked at those jobs versus student housing. I was like, I could probably get like free housing with this and be a manager. So ended up staying in housing. Journey has led me to like the Norman, Oklahoma market, into the Waco market, which ultimately led me to the Austin market, where I was a dual site property manager for a company, and then ended up with the Scion Group as a dual site property manager over both of their assets there. Was there for about a year before I had applied and moved up to Chicago to our corporate office to become an operations manager. And we found a need for someone to centralize and manage like the turn and turn process for our entire company. And so that was really my big focus, and has been for the past 2.5, almost 3 years before just these past couple of weeks getting a promotion to the director of operations role, which will still oversee that position. So it's kind of been my journey starting off in school and just kind of kept at it.
Yeah, not an uncommon story, as you probably guessed from my reaction. I someday we're going to stitch together all of a montage of people saying, "I just wanted to get the free rent, and now here I am." You touched on Scion a little bit. I want to just, if you wouldn't mind, give a little information about Scion, your product type that you guys focus on, kind of general size, location, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so Scion, founded in 1999. We are solely student housing. We are owner operator. We don't really do third party very often, if any. We have around 126 properties across 33 states, roughly 74 college markets. So for multifamily, that's around 27,628 units, and roughly something around there, almost exact, and then or right around 83,000 beds and still growing. So, um, really, kind of what Scion focuses on. We feel that we're good at management. We feel that we're focused on that, and we kind of stay in our lane when it comes to that. We don't really dabble in the development piece or third party too much. So, really, owner operator.
Awesome. So when we say, hey, look, we want to really focus on the mechanics of student turn, probably the most daunting, I think, element of operating student housing, talking to the director of operations at one of the largest student housing operators who's exclusively focused on student housing is probably a good place to start. So we're glad to have you here in the classroom today. So let's jump into that, Deb. I mean, the student housing as a product type, and I've talked with on this subject with some other folks who've been here in our classroom here at the Academy, is just, it's a really interesting very actually compelling from an economic standpoint product type, but so I think discouraging or daunting perhaps for those outside of student who have been in conventional their whole life to contemplate the mechanics of turning over your entire community or most of it um, every year. And yet you guys have it down to a science. So let's talk about kind of how about this? Walk us through kind of just the general elements of what makes for a successful turn, and then we can dig into kind of each one of those and give some details of how Scion pulls that off.
Yeah, so, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically 2 weeks of just pure madness in student housing, mass move outs, mass move ins, and we are juggling vendor after vendor after vendor. So the biggest component is really your planning in advance, the work that you do in advance. And really just the support that you're giving your site teams and the actual training on it. Those are I think the key functions for it is one, anyone can come and do a student housing turn with the right knowledge and with the right mindset of what they need to tackle and how the whole mechanics of it work. Like you said, it truly is a science on knowing the flow, having set standards, and that's kind of where Scion really found the need to centralize our turn planning, turn education, and then kind of leaving it up to our site teams to continue that execution of the actual process itself.
So what are the elements that you're planning for? I think there are a couple surprising things that people may not, and I'm thinking about vendors. I'm thinking about furniture, those kind of things. Talk a little bit about the planning phase and what goes into that.
Yeah, so for turn, I think there's so many different elements that we focus on. Really starting off, if we want to start basically in order, we look at turn furniture starting in October. Students moved in August to September. We are in the units in October and November checking furniture, looking at what we didn't replace. What is this overall status now? Placing those orders in December, and it's being thoughtful of that mindset of why do we shove everything into a 2 week window? What can we do outside of that 2 week window to lower stress, to lower the staff turnover, to help boost morale for our team? So for us, like we order furniture, we have that delivered in the summer. Why are we waiting? Get it in there now. From there, we start all of our vendor processes in January. We are requesting proposals. We have already outlined what expect to be included in pricing, what our set standards are as a company when we look at full paints, turn paints, partial paints, full cleans, etc. So, it's educating our teams on reading their contracts, reading those requests for proposals. And then the month of January or the month of February and March is truly we are outlining every dime that we will spend for turn from our turn paint, clean, labor and overtime, how much we anticipate on trash expenses, what R&M supplies are we ordering. So from there, we can really gauge how our site teams are set to perform. What do they need? What is the actual amount of stuff they're actually turning? Like what is our overall turn number? Are we turning 685 beds? Are we turning 400 of the 800 beds because we had 50% renewal? And then it's pushing our teams to look outside the box and say, okay, great, but like what can you do in-house? How much of that can you do over the summer? How many are currently vacant that are already turned? So let's get that finite number and really make sure that we're scaling back because we really, really focus on cost. We want to make sure that our site teams are thinking outside the box. They're hitting specific targets. We've been able to lower, I think this past turn, we were able to save close to $2 million as a company by planning ahead and truly diving into the weeds of what is a true turn expense and what can we do. But from there, we hold turn-based camp training that's virtual that we're training on how they should manage their teams. What order are you actually going to send vendors in and what can you do now? And so we've had a lot of mindset shifts when it came to just our quarterly inspections, what we're doing, and it's just truly educating the teams and the tools that they need to be like figure out what is broken now. Why aren't we fixing now? Let's be a proactive company, not a reactive company, and just say, well, they're going to move out. I'll just fix the 10 holes in the walls then, or I'll just replace everything then and just fix everything then. We want to make sure that our teams have that proactive mindset to actually go through and get it done to where we're just flying through at this point when it comes to turn. We should not have to work our teams those long hours that I know a lot of people listening have probably done that, where you're up at 8 at the property and then you're painting curbs until midnight trying to get it ready the night before move in. And so really taking that proactive mindset with the teams, I think, has been the biggest piece for us.
Thank you for walking us through that. I have questions, lots of questions. How do you pull this off? But one thing is, so I heard you talk about budget. Does that actually inform any game day decisions, or is that mostly about, look, we just want to know how much we're going to spend, and when all the dust settles, we want to know how we did afterwards? Is there anything that you utilize that budget for in the heat of the moment to guide process?
100%. We have trending actual tabs that we've built out in their expense workbooks. So we have specific workbooks that we've created for the teams that roll up into our master workbooks. And within that, once I have a site team that has a budget number and they need a little bit more to pull off a successful turn and say, we've approved that, that's their new standard that we want them to set. That's their new benchmark. And so we will then have a tracking that teams can track every expense that they actually put in, whether that is turn admin, what they're trending with paint, carpet cleans, etc. The turn software that we use, Turnable, that is how we manage those main GLs. So as teams are doing those game time decisions, we want them to be forward thinking. And so they're inputting their actuals, just keeping up with their budget so they can see where there's a spike. So they know immediately, hey, I had to change this from a partial paint. I've changed 5 full paints. I'm now trending to be over budget. They're either talking with their RM or they're coming to me. They're asking me, hey, Zeb, what can I do here? And I'm like, well, have you ordered this and do you need these supplies? Well, no. Cool. Let's scale back there. Great. Let's keep that going. Or we're walking through it. And if there are unforeseen things that happen, they're putting that on their workbook so then we know we're not blindsided by the bill at the very end to say, well, we projected this cost, we came in here. This past year, we projected a lot higher where they said this is what we need to turn. Actuals came in a lot lower because of the training that we're giving our teams to be forward thinking, to make sure that they are problem solving on their own. They're general managers. We want them to know how to problem solve. If you have a vendor walk and you're having to give it to the more expensive vendor, what can you do? Are you done with punch? Cool. Let's pick up some carpet cleaning. Let's keep those going. Let's find savings elsewhere. And so it's really helped for most of our communities. It's not to say that we don't have those one-offs where we're just like, here's the money, get it done, let's get across the finish line. But I think it's enabling our teams to have those tools and that forward-thinking mindset that they can track their actuals and make those game time decisions has been super crucial.
Very interesting. I didn't expect that level of real time tracking. That's pretty cool. You mentioned Turnable helping you with that front, and sort of that brings us to a good point for to talk about kind of the tools that you use and what role they play in a successful turn. So if you would, let's talk about that a little bit. Starting with Turnable, we talked about the budget, or you mentioned the budgeting. What more does the software do for you to make this a success?
Yeah, so again, your main drivers, the common GLs that are with every single company is going to be your vendor services, your paint, your clean, your carpet clean, carpet or flooring replacements. And so the great thing that we love about Turnable is it is a direct integration with Entrada. So it's pulling in all of our unit data, all of our leasing data. So we immediately know where our renewals are, where our new leases are, where our transfer ins, transfer outs. It's going to flag any leapfrogs that we have. And so with that, we're able to see that. It then will import all of our inspection data that we have done and throw it in there to say, hey, this is every full paint, partial paint, ceiling paint that you have expected in your inspections. It's going to pull in where we deemed flooring replacements. It's great about Turnbull's, we can have them bulk add full cleans. We're going to full clean everything. We're going to then say if we want to full clean or bulk add all carpet cleans, maybe that's a standard, then we can have that added in. From there, our site teams go in and they put in their approved vendors, their approved vendor pricing. Once the vendors are in there, the teams are created. It's simply assigning. So it's looking to see how much work do we need to get done in a day. And Turnable is great about that. We can say we're going to do 10 units every single day and we want our paint vendors to be done by this day. Well, once you schedule 10 units a day in 5 days before you move in, you're sitting with 30 units still left. So you're like, okay, nope, that isn't going to work. We need 15. And so we're able to then see how many we need to get done a day to actually hit our goals of having vendors off site so many days before move in. But the moment that we assign that and everything is fully assigned and scheduled, we now have our budget, we have our projected spend, and then we're just waiting for actuals to come in. So I can now look to see, well, this is what I projected in my workbook. This is after everything is assigned based off our inspections, the work that actually needs to be done. $5,000 over budget. What do we do? So then we're like, okay, we have in house carpet cleaning. Let's start pulling those. Let's start doing carpet cleans in house. How many of these bedrooms are currently vacant right now? And it is May. Cool. Reassign those to in house. Let's paint those bedrooms now. Immediately able to then reschedule and then now see that we're trending with projections there. But again, real time crap happens. And so as they're going through, the vendor's like, hey, Zeb, this is not a partial. This is totally a full. We're able to change that in the system and immediately see, okay, now we're actually trending a little bit higher with actuals. So we don't just track those vendor services. We track a number of other turn related general ledgers. And so the team can immediately go there and see, okay, well, where do I have savings? Well, I ordered less paint than I needed, so I have about 5,000 in my pocket that I know. So this 5,000 over in paint, I'm equaled out. I'm good. It's that type of problem solving. We tell the team, this is act like this is your bank account, act like this is your home. How are you going to manage that? And so it's been great. It's been great with our vendor partners. Our vendor partners know kind of our expectations and kind of how we run with that. And we've been able to kind of keep building those relationships. But that's the software is really helpful with that for us to plan, project, and then we can actually see after they have scheduled everything if they're meeting their daily goals. And immediately I can see, hey, this property is not hitting their goals. They are going to fall behind. They are not going to cross the finish line. I'm immediately on the phone calling support, getting other properties there that have finished turn, calling other vendors to go in and kind of help assist, or calling the property, be like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? You're falling behind. That's not okay. We're going to get you across the finish line. And our teams know it's not a bad mark. It's a I'm waving the red flag because I need help, and we're going to get you there because it's a team effort. So it's just such a crucial tool to use to know what's going on your site team or during turn for your sites at all time.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I can't imagine what turn was like for you guys, 10 years ago before you had, I mean, it was,
Excel's man, Excel's turn boards. Woo.
okay, so you're through turn, you got it scheduled, everything, you're tracked everything, you can see where you spent things. Um, any other component mid turn? Are we now towards post turn process?
Yes, I mean, really, everything pre-turn for us, we also, part of this is planning is centralizing the communication that our residents are receiving because our main concern is our resident satisfaction. So we are truly outlined. We have a very detailed communication calendar. What communication templates are sending, it's all pre-done for them. What days? Is it a 90-day, 30-day, 20-day, 14-day, 7-day, 48 hours? And who are the actual groups that they need to create in Message Center to send it out. So a lot of planning goes into it as far as this is our policy on communication. This is how we'll do transfers. This is early move-in fees. Um, all of that's kind of that beforehand in the actual churn training. I actually host weekly office hours starting in March for our teams to hop on for any turn related questions. Do you have turnable questions? Do you have just turn communication questions? Are you struggling with vendors? Something happened with your turn order. Let's walk through that. And so it's really been that centralized approach to just having one central truth of knowledge that can help and knows everyone's budgets and that can actually funnel all the questions into one. And so you do all that beforehand, you use Turnable to plan ahead, then you're using Turnable through the thick of it. Now we're on the other side, and really for us, it's then launching our resident surveys to see, how do we do? What do the residents truly care about? Do they care about a paint? Do they care about cleaning? Or do they care about the furniture? And then it's the true up of all of our invoices. So it's going through and making sure that we are getting everything paid out and making sure that we're matching. And the great thing about that is if we know where we started, we know what our projections were, then as actuals come in, if we're way lower, then we immediately know these properties have outstanding invoices. Let's get those trued up so that way we're in compliance with our vendors and we're done. So it really does help with the full on tracking and knowing where we're projected versus just saying, property, here's your budget. Just don't go over budget, for every single turn. GL, I think, has been the crucial part for us.
So at the end there, you're able to say, um, here's what we did. Here was the agreed upon pricing. Here's our expected invoices we should receive. And then you can match those up.
Yep. And we have do not exceeds in all of our vendor invoices. So our vendors know, hey, the moment that we have hit this threshold, if you need to change stuff, I'm getting sign off. And we sign off at that point with their regional managers, their regional vice presidents. So at any point, we're tracking any additional sign off. So then we know we started here with vendor contracts. This is where we should have ended. We started here with turn R&M orders. I can see everything that they've ordered and all the invoices that have come in. So it, like I said, we're very focused on budgets and making sure that we're meeting budgets, and we're instilling that in our general managers to know budgets mean something. It's not just, hey, oh, let me just give a variance for, like, a variance comment because I just had to do it. We want them to truly be thinking through their budgets and figuring out how one thing can affect another and how they can find savings. And so all of our teams know, like, hey, I had to do this. I'm going to find savings here. I had to do this. Let's shift this over here. So, really looking at the bigger picture, they may be over in one or two GLs, but they're going to have savings in another. Overall, what was your turn performance? That's what I want to see.
And you're measuring, you're surveying residents after move out, their experience, move out experience, and you're surveying residents after they move in. Like, how was your move in experience? Yeah.
Yeah, so our brand department is great about that. Our brand and engagement marketing, they will actually go through, build out surveys with us on kind of what a resident is experiencing or what we should be pulling. And then we look at those NPS scores from there to see, hey, what is that perfect timing? Is it immediately after they moved in? Is it 48 hours? Or do we actually give them time to settle in? Maybe it's a 5 or 7 day window. But we do survey them to see where were we successful? Where were we not? But we're also tracking to see, were they a transfer? Were they a new resident? Did they maybe move into a partially renewed unit so we can truly understand, you know, what their resident experience was? Because each of those will have a completely different experience, transferring into a new apartment. What was the transfer process like? But if I'm moving into an apartment that has two people already living there, I'm not getting this brand new feeling, freshly painted, freshly cleaned, completely empty apartment. I'm moving in and seeing the flags that are on their walls. So, like, what's my experience like? So we truly try to break it down even further if we can.
Holy crap, Zeb! What a amazing treasure trove of information. You could probably create a white paper just to publish like all the different net effects of those different scenarios you just discussed. That'd be pretty cool. All right, in our closing minutes here, and then by the way, and then you start all over again. Everybody in and start. Yeah.
It never stops. It's 365.
Would you mind sharing? You talked about the importance of resident communication. What do you use to facilitate the communication? Do that in Entrada, text messaging, emailing? How's that happening?
It's all through Entrada, all through Message Center. So we create templates for the site teams, and then we insert those templates per brand because Scion, we have brands, and we have baby brands, is what we call them, that our teams kind of identify when it comes to what our marketing will look like, what the voices will kind of be like, what their messaging should feel like. And so we have every communication kind of pre-done for the site teams. Their BUA communications, their transfer letters, move out expectations, move in prep letters, all of that stuff that we work with our systems team to then basically embed all the information that needs to just pull per resident. Then our site teams will have a calendar view, and they're basically going into Message Center and creating the list that we've told them, and then they're just pre-scheduling every single one of those letters based off of when their move out day is. Everything's derived either by a move out day or move in day or a transfer day. And it's less work on our teams to feel like they're having to type up every single letter. When should we send it? We got it. Here's your calendar view. All you need to do is just grab it, schedule it, and just wait for the schedules to work from there. So sometimes it can be a little overwhelming if there's a lot of letters, but what we've learned is we would rather over communicate to our residents than not, and have them feel that um, we're not shy of letting them know exactly what's going to happen when they show up on move in or what they need to do prior to move out. So
Yeah, I wanted to double click on that whole subject because it seemed like you sort of emphasized the importance of it, and so I was interested in the mechanics of how that gets done. Well, Zeb, thank you for taking the time with us today to talk about. I mean, you've given. I think this is the roadmap. Anybody wants to be successful, so like this is it. This is the roadmap. And if you guys are owner operators, so there's no opportunity for folks to come to you for management. But if people are interested in perhaps learning more about the organization, how do they reach out to you?
yeah, LinkedIn is always a good option. Just reach out. I'm happy to share tips and tricks. I'm normally at LeaseCon TurnCon as well, either speaking on a panel or just there connecting, and always happy to share ideas and help brainstorm with other collaborators. Again, here to help. We're all kind of in this together at this point. So there's definitely knowledge that I'm happy to help walk through with people.
Very cool. Thank you for gracing our classroom today with such knowledge. Appreciate it.
Of course, of course.
And I will go. I'll see you at LeaseCon. That's be my first one this year. So I'll see you there.
Yeah, no, 100%. Be excited to see you.
Thank you, Zeb. Appreciate your time. Good talking to you. Thank you for joining us at this week's episode of the Apartment Academy podcast. The Apartment Academy is a production of Leonardo 24/7, the industry's leader in multifamily operations and maintenance software. At Apartment Academy, we realize the hard work that goes into property management and the stress that comes along with it. Leonardo 24/7 takes the guesswork out of your team's day-to-day by providing customized daily guidance on tasks that need to be done, guaranteeing consistent operations across your entire portfolio. To learn more, visit www.leonardo247.com today.